One of the oddest issues I have ever seen. Alright, so I cooked this saw in about half a tank. The piston is indeed scored. And I was trying to figure out why. You know, I just built this. It's a fresh build. What the heck's going on? It wouldn't quite tune right at a mini get-together we just had. Just, you know, trying it for the first time. And what in the world? Why would it not tune? So I did a compression test, and it was 185, so still pretty good, but clearly the piston is indeed scored. So, what happened? And so I did a pressure test. It held pressure pretty good, but it didn't hold vacuum. And normally, when you do a test like that, it's because one of the springs popped out of the seals, and usually on the clutch side. But I don't think that's the case here. And the reason is because we have a really strange issue. So, the thread here, the clutch side thread on a 372 is M14 by 1.25 left hand. So, if you have a clutch that is M14 by 1.25 left hand, that's what goes on that, right? Okay. So, I'm going to put this clutch aside for the moment. So this clutch, and you know, as I'm putting things together, I guess I didn't really notice, but I've got this most of the way on, and it still wobbles a lot. Now, if you bring it all the way down, it does cinch up. Okay, so that's good. But it still, look, before it cinches, it still wobbles. So, what's up with that? What in the world is going on there? So, I think this is an aftermarket clutch. I'm not sure. So, you can just say, junk aftermarket stuff. But then you measure it. $13.5. I get, you know, if I'm measuring this properly, it's like 13.75. So, 13.55. So, this is M14. That's right. Now, what happens if you measure this? Actually, for the hell of it, I threw this other clutch on, but what happens if you measure this? This is going to be tough to measure. That's 14. Okay. How about this? This other clutch. 12.5. What? What? Huh? Huh? So what I did was, took this clutch, which does actually fit, and cinch it down, and guess what? It passed the vac test. Now, why would that happen? Well, if you pressurize the crankcase, this is my best theory here, the bushing that is here, if you pressurize the crankcase first, the bushing can come out a little bit. It just comes out just a teeny bit. It's all that needs. And then you hit it with a vac test, and air rushes in. Best guess. Best guess. So if this clutch here is allowing that bushing to move out for some reason, and ideally the clutch is supposed to hold the bushing, this bushing absolutely seated. That's what the clutch is supposed to do. That way the bushing seats against that little rubber O-ring that's in there, which I've made other videos of. But Yeah, so the clutch is supposed to hold the bushing down and seated and sealed. So why are there two different thread sizes? Let me see if I can find another clutch that I happen to have laying around and see if we can see anything there. So I have two more. Have two more. .6. .6. So, whatever this one is out of spec. So this clutch killed my saw. I don't think it's worn. The threads look good. There's something on here that is not within spec. That's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Just never seen that before. So I'm going to throw one of these clutches on, and then it'll pass the vacuum test. So let's see if I can replicate the issue here for you guys. Because if I can replicate it, we know we've got at least one of the problems with the saw. Okay. I'm not trying to impact it on. That's not the idea. I just want to knock it just so it's fairly snug. You really don't want to impact it. But anyway, you get the idea. Okay. So let's go to pressure. You can see she holds pretty good. Now we're going to go to vacuum. I think that bushing is now seated. Pause, hang on. I have a theory. Okay, so we're back. So the problem is I can't replicate it. Lovely. All I know is when I put this clutch on, and I've tried to replicate it, but all I know is when I put this clutch on, the vac leak disappeared. That's what I know. So this clutch here, I think I'm just going to throw out. Goodbye. It's out of spec, and I don't know what it could possibly be used for. So I don't think the 385 390s use that clutch, but they have the same thread pattern. So who would use a bigger thread pattern? I don't know. So I'm gonna heave-ho that. Okay. So this clutch is on, and now we actually pass the vac test. Now you can see this is wet. I did dunk this just to see what was up, and really the only leak that we have now is a very, very minor leak from the decomp here. So what I might do is actually just take that out and hit it in the ultrasonic for a little bit. See if that helps. You can almost hear it. Tick, tick, tick. So, but the rest of this seems pretty good as far as vac and pressure leaks go. Now I just got to take the cylinder head off and put a new piston on here. And since this is a pop-up, I got to make a new pop-up, which means I got to go down to my folks and make the pop-up. So, yeah. Which means I got to order another piston. Yay. Anyway, that's kind of where we're at. That's a weird problem. I've never seen that before. The only thing close to it is on one of my sets of tools, one of the guys was saying that, Mike, you know who you are, but the tool would go on to one of the 660 clones, the steel 660 clones, and you'd put the nut on it and the tool would back right off. It wouldn't grab onto the crank, and we were scratching our heads and saying, well, you know, are my rods out of spec? Well, as it turns out, he actually measured the crank, and the crank threads were out of spec. So they were actually slightly too small. Obviously, that's not good. So, like, wow, okay, that's interesting. And no wonder why my tool didn't go on the crank and pull the whole thing together. Well, it's because the crank itself was out of spec. So I guess these issues do pop up. They're weird. I'd say they're exceptionally rare. I don't know. I mean, I've never had a clutch that was out of spec, not for a 372. I mean, clearly it's a 372 clutch, but yeah. Anyway, I'm just going to junk that and it's got bad written all over it. So let's put a new piston in here and see what happens. And if I find anything else that's weird, I will let you guys know. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.